Yanky, your book of the month.
Well, first of all, I'm going to tell you the book that I'm not going to talk about this week, but I've actually brought it along, unlike my colleague. The reason why I've chosen this book is, first of all, it's got one of the weirdest titles ever. It's Kluge. Kluge. And Kluge is an engineering term for something that oughtn't to work but does. It's like when you cobble together a solution and logic says that'll never work, but actually it does. And Gary Marcus says that our minds are actually clues. The way we are wired, we should not be able to solve problems. Evolutionary factors are all against us being able to solve problems, but somehow we get round it. Now, the reason why the connection between Kluge and egonomics, which is the book I will be talking a bit more about, is that they're both in the same pretty new genre about talking about how imperfect we are as rational beings, as people who think that we know what we're doing. And there's more and more of these books coming out that are saying our brain leads us astray again and again and again, far more than we actually realize. Again, going back to something that was mentioned earlier, when Dirk spoke about creative destruction. So Kluge gives a wonderful example of a successful failure. It's the famous story of Houston, we have a problem. What happened on Apollo 13 when a filter malfunctioned on board, and unless they had an air filter, they were all going to arrive dead back on Earth.
This is the book you're not talking about, is it?
It's still the book I'm not talking about. And some of you may remember, if you're old enough, there was a TV series called MacGyver about this guy who could cobble together. He got out of amazing solutions with an elastic band. And what happened with Apollo was that ground control engineers sat and were given a list of what was on board. And they said, right, from what is on board, you must cobble together some way of them being able to get out of this, solve the problem that they don't have spare filters. And they did with plastic bottles and etc. And and they landed and they lived to tell the tale.
Brand straps were involved as well. I gather. Yeah. Sorry.
And Marcus says this was termed by NASA as a successful failure. Now, what's interesting about that term is that when I interviewed Edward de Bono about a year ago, he said our language lacks a word for successful failure. He says there are lots of things that we do that they don't actually work, but they're very important. And that was an interesting